Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. My name is Mars, and today we're going to be looking at the new Shinryu trial, which I actually really like, despite the fact that it has some RNG-related mechanics that a lot of people say are BS and can be BS in a lot of cases, but in my experience doing this trial, it is actually quite a lot of fun. So I wanted to talk real quick about the team that I went ahead and cleared this with, and so just so that you understand what's going on with the builds and the strategy behind it, and then let you get on to watching it. So for draw attacks, which is totally not necessary, you can solo tank this, but because I'm a huge fan of both Warrior of Light and Cecil, and I like using tanks, we're using both of them. Warrior of Light is doing draw attacks and evade, although evade is not necessary at all. You can draw attacks, you know, and just normally tank it, because the boss honestly doesn't hurt that hard. The boss is pretty well power creeped, like it should have come out like 6 months ago, but didn't, but you know, here we are. So I went ahead and built him just with that draw attacks and some evade, just so that I didn't have to figure out how much EHP I might have needed. He's also got status ailment immunity, which he ultimately doesn't need, and his element resistances are also kind of irrelevant as well. As far as I'm aware, okay, because I don't read the whole AI, I don't know every little in and out about a fight, but I do have a general idea of what goes on. His main purpose as the draw provoker is to supply defense buffs, barriers, general mitigation if necessary, but it wasn't in this particular clear, physical mitigation if it were necessary, but also most importantly, he has this Light's Remedy skill, which can remove petrification, because the boss does put out one or two random targeted non-resistible petrifications, so you need a couple of people in your party who can remove it in one way or another, and Warrior of Light has Light's Remedy for that. The only other note regarding his build is that I'm using Black Belt, and that's because I like to generate Limit Burst crystals using counters, and so with every single one of the physical attacks that he takes, he has a chance to counter it with a normal attack that generates LB crystals. In this particular run, I didn't do either of the Esper summons because you basically just delay during the first phase of the fight until you get your summons ready to go. You get the summons out of the way, and then you continue with the fight, as you'll see in the rest of the video, but in this particular clip, it's just going to show me explodinating the boss instead. Moving on, we have Mira as our healer. She's the only one who had special consideration when it came to her build. The boss does a preemptive water attack that does hurt very badly because he's unbroken, and you have no magic cover tank available, you know, on the preemptive turn to cover it, so she needed 100% water resist to ensure that she would survive that attack. And Guts doesn't really work against it either because it's multi-hit, so that was the primary consideration with Mira, is I wanted her to be able to resist that water attack in the preemptive, but otherwise she doesn't have any other special stuff. She has status ailments, which again is irrelevant for this fight because you can't resist the petrification, and most of the other elemental damage is covered by the magic tank. So from what I hear, a little bit of earth resist can help because one of the boss's attacks is like a fixed attack that scales against your defense or something like that, and it deals earth damage. So if you have some earth resist, that can help as well. But water was the only important one for Mira because she was there to raise people after they got killed by the preemptive flood. Now the next person is Paladin Cecil, and you'll see in this video that I actually gave him too much element resist, which is kind of funny. Because I actually wanted him to take a little bit of damage so that his sturdy headband could activate counters and stuff like that. But at any rate, his build is basically just for chonkiness, some counters, and a little bit of water resist. He had just enough to survive, although I have cleared it where he had no water resistance at all, and he died, and I just raised him and went along with my life, and that also works. So, but in this case, he is built with some water resist to make sure that he survives the preemptive so that he can cover on his first turn. Otherwise, he spends his first turn dead, as with anybody else, but yeah. Now, my Madame Edel is built pretty much exclusively for damage. She has very little in terms of tankiness stuff other than, you know, the equipment that comes with it. My Madame Edel is probably one of the best builds out there, just for general purpose. She has 250% Dragon Killer. The only non-damage associated thing she has equipped is Unquestionable Loyalty, which gives her some extra HP and Spirit, which is, you know, that's great. That's fine. Handy to have, but ultimately she didn't need it. But yeah, that's just there just in case. In the video, you'll see that she basically only needs to do damage and doesn't have to worry too much about survival, even with her spirit as low as a lot of people think it is. Now, Edgar is... God, I love Edgar. He's so cool. He is also built with 100% water resistance because he needs to survive the preemptive as well. So him and Mira are the two people that needed to survive, absolutely. And that's so that he can supply a break so that we don't get killed on turn 2. Other than that, he's got a lot of auto limit and high tide sort of stuff. And the only other special item of note is the Galkin dagger, which came from an event a long time ago. And the whole point of this was to give him an earth element so that when Madame Edel has her gem strikes ready, he can go ahead and chain Stardust Ray with one Madame Edel and have the other Madame Edel finish on top of that. So you'll see that in full prime action in the video. But other than that, that's what he's built for. Honestly, this fight's not too difficult, and I wouldn't expect it to be given how old it is compared to when it should have released. So that just about covers it. Let's dive right on into the action.